Hi everybody, you're watching White Mountains TV. I'm Chris Proulx, and my guest right now is Jonathan Emery, who took the 2-hour trip from southern New Hampshire to join us this morning. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And I came across one of your videos on the internet, that's the place where you come across things these days. And I said we had to get this guy in here because the mountain biking scene in the Mount Washington Valley and throughout the White Mountains is exploding. And you're kind of taking it to a new level. There's many new trails being built. You're actually using some trails that have been around for quite a long time in a new way. Tell me about Project Northeast. What is Project Northeast?
So Project Northeast is just something I came up with years ago. Just a name, basically, for social media channels. I started making little videos here and there years ago, and they never came out very good.
Yep.
And it was just basically to show off what we have for riding and terrain in the East, because you see so much media in the mountain bike world of, Canada and Whistler and,
Yep.
The West Coast and all that stuff. And BC,
Yep.
where basically mountain biking and free ride was born,
Right.
But we have a lot
British
of that
Columbia,
in the
not
East.
Boston College, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So, it was just basically showing off what we have here in the East. And,
Yep.
I'm not the first one to ride all these mountains. And honestly, I got most of my inspiration from other guys that have actually lived in the Washington Valley.
Right.
And I've got a lot of my information from them.
Very cool.
So,
we're going to see some clips of some films you've made, including an epic ascent of Mount Washington. Many of us have taken pictures with the summit sign on Mount Washington. Very few of us have ridden to it from the base of the mountain. We're going to check that out in just a little bit, but why is it important to you to kind of showcase the Northeast and showcase the White Mountains? You grew up in New Hampshire. What makes these mountains special to you?
It's just where I'm from, and you see everything that's around there in the media world,
Yeah.
and you're like, well, I have that kind of terrain in my backyard. It's
Right.
just not as easy to get to as other places.
Yeah.
Sometimes to get to a mountain ridgetop around here and ride granite, you got to hike your bike up for 2 or 3 hours.
Right.
Whereas out west, it's all open vistas and stuff like that. And that's kind of what made me want to venture out, is actually traveling out west, having those open vistas
Yeah.
at the top of mountains and being able to ride along ridges and stuff like that. And then coming back here, I kind of missed that. And it was like, well, we could probably do that. We just got to work a little bit harder for it,
Yep.
And yeah, it's awesome.
All right, so tell me about the working harder for it, because your last film you just released was a mountain biking ascent of Mount Washington. Tell me about the inspiration and the execution. How did you guys do it?
So I wouldn't exactly call it a ride up Mount Washington, but it was more of like a hike-a-bike, and then we were able to ride, a good portion of it down. And that just happened, we were at a weekly enduro training ride that we do at Highland Mountain Bike Park in Northfield, New Hampshire. And we were there having a few beers, and we were like, okay, well, what mountain should we do next? As part of the series at Bike the Whites
Yep.
that I have on YouTube.
And the beers chose Mount Washington.
And no, somebody basically was like, what if we just do, the biggest mountain in the East? Well, we just do Mount Washington. And everybody just kind of perked up,
Yeah.
like they'd already had it on their minds at one point or another. And we're just like, yeah, okay, let's do it.
Yep.
And actually one of my good buddies, Tucker, lives in the Lakes region, and he's probably done more than I have, but he just doesn't advertise it. He
Right.
just goes out and does it. And he actually did it in the winter
Wow.
with his fat bike.
Holy cow. So in choosing your route for this summer ascent, you can't just go and ride whatever you want. A lot of people would think, well, why don't you just ride your bike up the Mount Washington Auto Road? Well, the Auto Road
Right.
is closed to bikes except for a couple of race days
Yeah.
a year. And there are other rules and regulations that you have to abide by, put out by the National Forest. So tell us how you chose your ascent and descent.
So I have a bunch of different resources that I use as far as apps,
Yep.
hiking apps, mountain bike apps, and also the U.S. Forestry website and other resources like that. Because you look around and you have all these things on the internet that will tell you can't do this, you can't do that.
Right.
There's opinions, one side, one the other.
Yeah.
But you just want to know, as somebody that's going in the backcountry, you want to know, okay, I want to know that if anybody comes up to me and says, what are you doing here? You're not allowed to be here. And just basically be like, nope, this is the proof. I know exactly where I am. I know exactly what I'm doing. So the resources are basically hiking apps to show elevations. Take a route, look at the elevation profile, and say, okay, that doesn't look too scary. Looks like something we could handle, as long as it's not just a boulder field. And then there's the researching on the U.S. Forestry website's wilderness map, because obviously bikes are not allowed in wilderness at this time. And then also the maps of the AT, which is the Appalachian Trail, which obviously is designated a footpath and not allowed for us to be on as well. But we can cross it and we can go along it, but we usually just shoulder our bikes. Kind of like people do out west when they're bike packing through the Arizona Trail or something like that, where they go through the Grand Canyon. They have to shoulder their bikes.
Right.
You know.
And so you ended up choosing the Jewel Trail for your descent?
We actually did a couple different tours on it. That was one of the trails that we chose based on just the mellow grade to get up and down. Yeah. And
so you make this film, you do the ride. You said this is art is, I always think, 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration.
For sure.
How much footage did you shoot trying to make a film that ended up being a few minutes about the glory of riding Mount Washington, and for every minute of glory, how much carrying your bike was there?
I kind of go in with a plan, knowing what I want to shoot. I've been making videos for probably only like a year or two now, and I've also had a lot of help from a teammate, Jimmy, that has kind of helped me along the way. But it's basically I have a plan and I go in and I shoot certain things, and sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't. But just doing the Mount Washington video took us about 17 hours on trail. And that was 2 different tours, 2 different ways to go around the mountains. We went up and down one way one time, and then we did a whole big loop around the other time. And it takes, I would say I don't really edit out a lot, because I usually have a plan, and when you get on the top, like when you're on the top of Tuckerman's Ravine, you're like, yeah, I should just hit record. And
for someone who's inspired by this, because it's hard not to be inspired, you see you riding these, it looks rigorous at times, but you're above tree line on this gorgeous ridge, in kind of the highest part of the White Mountains. What would you say to someone who wants to try to copy you?
I would say just be cautious and start small. We've done a lot of these types of hiker bikes. We're all, I would say, probably expert level to some of our team as pro level riders. Know what you're getting into, and just ask, maybe, ask around. And there's a lot of actually really good peaks, kind of like on the 52 with a view list, which is pretty popular. You can find some smaller mountains that offer a lot of bang for their buck. And within an hour you can be on the top with open vistas all 360 degrees.
Well, can we talk about some of those? Because you've seen this kind of explosion of mountain biking interest and participation across the Whites. We're in North Conway right now. You've ridden North Conway. What are some of your favorite rides in this area?
So my favorite rides in this area started out as just in the valley. Stuff that's White Mountain Nemba has done, and now Ride NoCo has got on board and tried to really promote it. With the Leaf Peeper coming up this weekend. And the trails around the valley offer huge potential. I mean, you can go up to, Black Cat parking lot. You can go down any trail off the side of Cranmore, which is all the Hurricane Mountain Road trails, we call them. And honestly, like the first adventure type riding I did was many, many years ago, seeing some of Patrick Noonan's rides. On Whitehorse. And that was like, wow, we can ride over there? I didn't know we could. But then, White Mountain Nemba had set up with the National Forest legit trails that go up and down. And that's probably the smallest mountain I ever did, but that was where I started. And that's what kind of got me hooked on riding on granite, slick rock, as they call it out west.
And what do you think about the mountain bike park expansions that a lot of the resorts are doing now? Loon has just created a machine machine-made downhill trails. Cranmore's doing that now. Does that interest you at all?
Yeah, I mean, we ride at Highland Mountain Bike Park.
Yep.
Basically every week. The team that I'm on, Team Granite, we basically had started years ago. We called it Beer League, but they didn't really like that name. So they changed it to Wensduro.
Yeah.
And they made it a legit night. And what that was when the lifts stopped spinning, we had a large contingent of riders that wanted to come after work.
Yep.
And a lot of us work, 7 to 3, 9 to 5, 8 to 5, whatever. Go up, ride up one of the green trails, descend some of the black diamonds or blue trails or whatever it may be, and have a good time. And the expansion has been huge. Have you seen, from Highland Mountain Bike Park to Highland Mountain is actually building Loon Mountains trails for them. And then you've got Cranmore, which is Tyrol Trails is over there, building trails for that network. So you see all these networks coming up. The riding's growing.
Yep.
More people are getting into gravity-oriented biking. And I've never seen trail builders as busy as they are now.
All right. Well, let's take a look at your latest film. Does it have a title? Or is it just you going up Mount Washington?
It's just episode 5 of Bike the Whites on YouTube,
All right.
and it's just Mount Washington.
Bike the Whites on YouTube. Is there any other way to get a hold of you if people want to check out what you're doing?
The handle on Instagram and YouTube is Project Northeast, all one word. You can go on YouTube, subscribe, go on to Instagram, hit follow, and follow along.
All right, Bike the Whites, episode 5. You're watching White Mountains TV. Let's take a look.
Yeah, we're riding our bikes.